In one sentence, what does your product do?
Abacode provides full managed cybersecurity and compliance programs using industry security and compliance standards to design, implement, and manage solutions that protect customer data and ensure customer compliance with regulations.
Now, give us your elevator pitch in less than 60 seconds.
Every organization out there, but especially organizations with B2B services, have security requirements, industry requirements, and compliance requirements. And those are usually very strictly aligned. However, those traditional organizations usually come at the problem from one side or the other, either compliance or security. Abacode combines cybersecurity and compliance into one managed cybersecurity and compliance program called MCCP, which takes your organization, no matter where it is on the compliance or security roadmap or maturity level, and takes you to the point to where not only is your security mechanisms implemented, but you are now compliant and able to go through this third-party attestations and audits.
What is the problem you are solving?
Customers typically call us because of two problems. A, they've been breached and now they need forensics and incident response, or they're calling us because they know they have a security need, usually tied to some kind of compliance requirement. They have to go through a SOC 2 audit or an ISO 27001 audit, usually to acquire a customer. And like I said earlier, most organizations treat security and compliance as separate projects. Abacode provides one product that provides you with the security mechanisms and the compliance processes using our partners, and you can have assurance that your data is not going to get exfiltrated, and ransomware, if that does hit you, you're ready to respond and it's not going to take down your entire network.
How are you solving it?
The way we solve it is by using our design, implement, and manage process. And again, no matter where you are in your compliance and security journey, we use the same process to make sure that you are addressing your issues in a risk-based approach. So we will do a risk assessment and compliance framework gap assessment initially to make sure that you are addressing all of your security risks, all your technical risks, that the assessment includes a vulnerability scan so that we can see the risk to your network. And we begin to build the program off of that based on the compliance standard that best fits your organization, either selected by the organization because of sales agreement or compliance requirements. But if they don't have a specific one, we'll help them select one. At Abacode, we will implement the security mechanisms, the vulnerability scanning, the VSOC and SIM. There are a lot of different mechanisms that are required for security and compliance. We implement those according to your program and your risk assessment. And then we help you manage those security mechanisms and those compliance processes. So on an ongoing basis, we will manage your compliance program, make sure it's generating the audit artifacts needed to pass your audits, and make sure your security mechanisms are configured correctly. We manage them on an ongoing basis.
Why is your solution different from others?
I said before, most organizations will come at the security and compliance problem from either the security side or the compliance side. The security side will come in, act reactively based on the most recent incident. So if there's a ransomware incident, the executives will now say, okay, now we need backups and we need to be able to restore our systems in the event of ransomware. If there's a breach, then they start going into WAF, encryption, things like that, but they're reacting to incidents instead of planning for them. And that's what compliance does, is it provides you with a list of everything bad that could happen and all the good things that you can do to prevent those bad things from happening. The potency of your compliance and security program, it'll hit your biggest risks first, and you'll have assurance that your program works because the program is built to provide you that assurance via audit artifacts, via reports, via our meetings with our SOC team on a weekly basis. The program is built so that it keeps going and it improves on itself over time.
What market segment is best suited to use your product or service?
The more heavily regulated you are, the more likely you are going to need our services. So if you are a B2B customer and you host an application where you take business data over the web, almost certainly you're going to be asked for a SOC 2 at some point. So you would need a managed cybersecurity and compliance program for SOC 2. If you're a larger organization, maybe you have international clients, you would want something like ISO 27001. Program is needed no matter what silo you're in. The limits to where the program has to go and the robustness of it is determined by your regulatory requirements and your industry requirements. If you're in...
What is the vision for the product or service in the next couple of years?
The evolution to now is separate security and compliance projects now fused into one security and compliance program where all of the documentation is stored in an online repository. Compliance is still very, very manual, and that needs to be automated. At any given point in time, I should be able to test my systems, mock audit myself. So we are working with organizations to automate compliance like we automate security tests. So instead of just having a control that states you have to, if someone is onboarded, they requires an approved access request ticket, because there are so many standards now. And if you're even a mid-sized organization, you have anywhere from 4 to 8 security standards and maybe 3 or 4 privacy standards you now have to comply with.
How did you get your first paying customer?
My first customers here at Abacode were all of my compliance customers that needed all these security mechanisms, to where I was just like, well, I mean, I guess go look on, Google vulnerability assessments and just pick one. Now I had the ability to actually implement all those security. Abacode here, we just kind of accidentally figured out, hey, I've got all these compliance customers that need security standards. You're already, the customers that are buying SIM, that are buying vulnerability assessments, they're doing that because there's a compliance standard that is.
How do you collaborate with clients in regards to features and design?
Every one of our programs is completely custom. So the way we collaborate is during the design phase, we get a complete snapshot of your organization, business processes, security, your IT network. How do your employees access your systems? How do they deliver services to your customers? If we don't use your strengths, we are stretching your security budget farther out. And that just increases the chance of something bad happening, which is bad for us. So it's really behooves us to work with the customers and work with their strengths. So we do pretty much every security process that you can think of that doesn't touch operations systems directly. So we don't onboard personnel. We don't make changes to, we don't patch. We don't migrate changes to production or anything like that.
How did the product or service start? What is the story behind it?
I met with Shane Wiseman and Michael Ferris, who are CFO and president of the company, and just at a Starbucks, and we had a couple mutual customers or acquaintances, and didn't really have an agenda for the meeting. So I assumed they were a security monitoring company. They were going to try to sell me. I just took it as just an informal meeting, and was just, I just basically complained to them the whole time that, this isn't really what I do. But during that meeting, it became clear to me that they were actually there to ask me to come work with them. So they had already kind of figured this out at this point.